to call our attention to come into practice. So here we go. Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators in the Spokane Sangha, and I am so happy to be here today. I'm so happy to practice with everybody. I'm so happy to set the intention of our practice. And let's begin by offering a sentiment of metta, loving kindness. For anybody who's new to the practice with me, I always begin our practices with a sentiment of metta. This is a little painting I made. I secretly want to be a painter and an artist, and this is all I get to. This on the back reads, "May you tend to you. May you tend to you." Taking a deep breath and allowing that sentiment of loving kindness to really envelop and wrap around you. May you tend to you. And let's put that into the first person for each of us. May I tend to me. And may you recognize and acknowledge that coming to the Dharma is an extraordinary way to nurture and tend to one's mind, heart, and spirit. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we are tending to ourselves using the exquisiteness of the Dharma as an opportunity to explore recovery. Recovering our true selves, recovering our Buddha nature, recovering our bodhicitta, that soft heart. The wounds within that are trying to surface for attention and care. And we are recovering that true nature by looking at the layers of habit energy we have devised and entertained and engaged, initially as a way to survive. So let's begin this practice by acknowledging that those early methods of survival, those early habits and patterns of behavior were meant to keep us safe. And because we're all here, they worked. They were effective. So bravo us for the ways that we have survived traumas and heartache, disappointment, disapproval, rejection, neglect, abuse. Wow. We are resilient. We are strong. We are wise. And we are here now as adults recognizing that some of those patterns, some of those habits were engaged long after their efficacy. And in fact, they became kind of attachments. And what served us well at one time, now it has become a disservice. And so we are learning new ways to cope, new strategies of survival and healing. We are maturing the heart and the mind. We are opening to surprise. We are exploring the nature of being human, which is both miraculous and messy. Again, bravo us. And this is the foundation upon which we stand as we explore and sort of summarize what we've been looking at this week, which is the theme of knowing and not knowing that lives under the enormous umbrella and concept of trust and betrayal, which we are highlighting this month in the Spokane Sangha. Trust and betrayal are words and concepts that we use and consider, but we have taken a deep dive and we have put trust and betrayal into the concepts of what it means to be trustworthy and what it means to engage deceit. We have also explored trust as an expression of honesty and betrayal as an act of omission. This week, we've been looking at what it means to know and what it means to not know. And I have brought forward and emphasized the not knowing piece as actually a threshold moment to stand before the wide open space of not knowing. That's really the wide open space of trust, because in order to step into the spaciousness of not knowing, we have to have cultivated a degree of trust. Without that degree of trust in the spaciousness of not knowing, we engage all kinds of habit energy about knowing. We engage arrogance, attachment. We become opinionated, righteous. We engage all manner of behavior that is controlling, trying to curate the conditions of our lives that fit our knowing. I just know this is the right thing to do, and therefore I'm going to create all the causes and conditions to just know that, to confirm my knowing, to prove I'm right. And you know, that's true. And there may be nothing wrong with that. However, in everything in life, there's a light side and a shadow side. And so when we get caught in that net of knowing and in all of those habit energies associated with it, we can become a little toxic in our knowing. And so then we step to the threshold of not knowing, this wide open space. I don't have all the answers. I don't have control of everything, everyone, including myself. So to trust in that space requires two things that are alive in me. And I'm going to share them with you not because I'm right, and these are the only two things, but because this is what has inspired me, and I share them with you only to inspire your own wisdom. And for you to trust your own inner guidance. You know far better than me what you need to trust in the space of not knowing. For me, I need two predominant things, and they are surrender and acceptance. And sometimes I have surrender first and then I lean into acceptance, but sometimes I'm accepting first and then I lead into surrender. Let me tell you what I mean. Surrender and acceptance, to my mind and my first person experience, are sisters. They sister one another. They support one another. They exchange all kinds of mutuality. And what they do in their togetherness is they allow me to see a situation as it is, not as I want it to be, not as I think it should be, but as it is. The most infuriating thing about it is I don't have to like it. Ah, I hate that sometimes. But it's true. I don't always like life as it is. In fact, sometimes I really hate it and I resist it and I fight with it. But trust says, Julia, darling, I don't care. This is just the way it is, darling. What you gonna do? Spend a lot of your energy resisting? Or can you see this for what it is? Can you surrender that resisting mind? Can you flow with it a little bit? Can you be supple with it a little bit? Because where it may take you, Julia darling, is to some place you never imagined, to a place of wonder, refuge, and healing. And this is not an easy practice, friends. To cultivate trust in the spaciousness of not knowing requires that we learn to accept life as it is, to surrender to this isness, and then to have the eyes of curiosity and wonder. Stay open to participating with life and see where it takes you. And I promise you, it will take you to thorny places and it will take you to places of great healing, because that's what being a whole human being is. The good and the bad, the light and the dark, the positive and the negative. We ride it on places of neutrality within our own hearts and minds. That's the practice. The practice enables us to have a steady, neutral stance, to weather the dichotomy of life. On Wednesday evening, I was reminded of an interbeing practice that I had forgotten about. And it's a powerful, powerful practice. I haven't thought about it in a long time. But if you're not familiar with interbeing or inter-R, it has to do with the quality and the extensive nature of mutuality. Our lives are interdependent on thousands and thousands of people we will never meet. The kindness of others enriches our lives in ways that we often fail to fully grasp. So here's an example in my own life. Many of you know this already. But a number of years ago, when my middle daughter was 4 years old, she's almost 21 now, she was diagnosed with a terrible leukemia, and my whole life was completely upended. And we knew we were facing a very serious and grave illness. Had I been diagnosed with her leukemia at 4, I would have died. It was universally fatal in the late 60s and early 70s. Every kid with leukemia at that time died. And it was only in the mid 80s to late 1980s that children with leukemia slowly started to survive. So we were facing something really grave, terrible. And in that moment, I had to accept this is my life as it is. This is her life as it is. And I had to surrender to the isness of something that I feared, that I loathed. All the talk about the best thing that ever happened to me, many people on cancer journeys talk about that because it strips away the irrelevant and petty aspects of life, and it really gets you to the core of what it means to have a life. All of that was so meaningless to me. At the time when we first got her diagnosis, I was just in the fires of hell. I was not on the other side of it yet, and I resented hearing things like, oh, this is the best thing that'll ever happen to you, Julia. Ugh, God. It's terrible. And to be clear, even though I gained a lot of insight and wisdom, I would trade that experience every day of the week and twice on Sunday so that my daughter wouldn't have to shoulder that burden and that trauma. But I can't. So I have to accept it. And I had to surrender to it. And I did not know the outcome of her treatment. I did not know all of the things that she would have to endure, all of the side effects, all of the hospitalizations, all of the threats. And one day, I was sitting in meditation and I was thinking about a particular chemotherapy that she had to receive. And on certain days, she had to have chemotherapy injected into her spine. And she had to have spinal taps in order to do that. She had 22 of them over the 2.5 years of her treatment. And after she had that treatment, that spinal tap chemotherapy, then she had to be infused with another chemotherapy. And one day I asked my husband why they couldn't give her that infusion while she was getting the spinal tap chemotherapy, because it would have saved us time. It was like an 8-hour day, because she'd get this intrathecal chemotherapy where she had to be sedated for it, then she'd have to wake up, and then she'd have to have an infusion. It was such a terrible long day. And he said to me, well, the reason why they don't give that chemotherapy in the treatment room and they have to do it in a separate infusion room is because that chemotherapy, if it was accidentally injected intrathecally, meaning into her spine, it's instantly lethal. And suddenly waiting for 8 hours for a whole day seemed like, that's clear. That was no big deal at all. That was a game changer. And then it made me realize, wow, there are so many people involved in this kid's treatment. First of all the scientists who have been studying various chemotherapies for decades. All of the funders supporting that. All of the pharmacists in the hospital who are checking and double checking which medications are being sent to whom. The nurses and the physicians who check and double check and who inject and infuse those medications. All of the people who make the syringes, the gauze, the plastic containers that everything is wrapped in order to keep things sterile. It goes on and on. Nameless, faceless people, countless people working behind the scenes that I will never know to save my daughter's life. And they did. Every single one of them contributed to the survival of my daughter, whose outcome I didn't know about and had to surrender to. And I had to surrender to all of these people who I didn't know as well. Your lives, I hope all of you never have to know an experience like this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But you will have your own trials, and you will have your own struggles, and you will have your own sufferings. And you will be at that threshold where you have to cross into a huge space of not knowing. And remember, even though you are surrounded by not knowing, the insecurity that it brings, the doubt and worry, you are also surrounded by thousands and thousands of people working to bring ease to your life, peace to your life. All of the people who stack the food in the grocery stores, all of the people around the world who sew your clothes. Every object in your home has been touched by hundreds of people. The coffee you drink, the tea you drink, everything is surrounded by the kindness of others. May you trust in that. May you find comfort in that. And may it tap into the incorruptible Buddha nature within you that only knows how to be resilient, loving, and present. And may this bring you to the shores of your own wisdom, healing, and transformation. To not know is intimately connected to trust. May you find shelter with its sisters, acceptance and surrender. Thank you, friends. Let's go ahead and end our practice today with a dedication of merit. And today I'd like to share with you and read for you Shantideva's dedication of merit. This is a particular prayer that I really, really love. For those of you who don't know Shantideva's work, Shantideva was an 8th century Buddhist monk and a scholar at Nalanda University. His story is quite extraordinary, and one of my favorite things about him is he created the 37 practices for being a bodhisattva. just a being on this earth that is here to alleviate suffering. And so this is his dedication, and I'd like to invite you all to assume a noble posture and really take a moment to allow the body to sit nice and tall. Allow the shoulders, bring your attention to your shoulders and see if you can roll them up a little bit and then roll them back. That way, that chest, that heart center of yours has an opportunity to open just a little bit, soften just a little bit, to enact and reach that spiritual warrior within you that lives from the heart, which is a vulnerable and strong place to be. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector of those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. You are all bodhisattvas. You are all called to this devotion in your own way and in your own time. Find the courage to express it in this world so desperate to have your unique light, style, access to healing. Bless you for your presence here, and thank you for being a reliable, trustworthy source of inspiration. Have a wonderful day and a beautiful weekend. We'll see you next time. Namaste.